Well, Stacey and I are preparing for our longest trip ever in the Yeti. And so we're just going over some routine maintenance, doing like oil change, air filter, bolt check, transmission swap, and making sure everything's working good.
Yes, folks, you heard that correctly. Another transmission swap. This will be the 4th transmission that I've put in the Yeti since I've owned it. When I bought the Yeti, he already had duals, and the original builder had decided to go with the 1st gen transmission for whatever reason. It is an L52. It is shorter and has some benefits, but it is generally considered weaker than the W56 that would have come in this truck had it been a 4-wheel drive, but it was a 2-wheel drive.
Good morning from Vancouver Island, where we get all 4 seasons of weather in one day. Well, we're continuing the maintenance on the Yeti, preparing for the big trip. We got the big one out of the way yesterday, so, transmission number 4. And we just rolled the dice and put in another used transmission. Not really what I like to do. I feel like a lot of the issues guys have with these old trucks is they just keep slapping in used motors and used parts, and I don't like doing that. You shouldn't do that, but I get it. Sometimes the pocketbook decides your fate. Well, today we got some other stuff to focus on because that wasn't the only thing on the list. So I'll show you what we got going on here. We got to make a new transmission little cover here. So I actually used a dirt bike inner tube and then siliconed it, and it looks like the silicone has set up really nicely overnight. Is it the prettiest? No. But was it free? Yes. And it's gonna work pretty good. And then we've got these guys. So this guy is obviously gonna go on that. And then we'll go in the shed because I actually made a little custom one for the twin stick shifters. And then I've got my metal center console to go on top of that. Well, this is my Ghetto Fab shifter boot. Since I didn't want to spend $80 plus shipping for this stupid trail gear one, so I just cut 2 boots. There's the bottom of it. I just cut 2 boots that I had laying around and glued them to this motorcycle tube. I just got to cut a couple holes in the bottom and then glue that on. Ghetto Fab. Okay, the next thing we got to look at is my exhaust leak. If you guys are ever all of a sudden getting bad fuel economy with a 22RE or a 3-liter, or really any gas engine, but look for exhaust leaks. My header likes to come loose because it's one of those shorty headers, and every time it comes loose, my fuel economy drops significantly, like from 400 kilometers to a tank to like just over 300. Can't explain it, but it's true. See how wiggly that is? Well, you can see there's little bits of black soot there, and it's the easiest way to tell you got an exhaust leak. Okay, so we got the center console all in. Probably gonna give this piece another coat of paint. And then I was thinking maybe like an old t-shirt or find like something cool pattern to kind of put in here and make it look a bit more finished. But I'm happy with that. And then I've got this space that I'm actually going to build something to hold the cameras when we're on the road. Now the next thing is I gotta figure out where to put these gauges, because last time they were just zap strapped to my e-brake cable, and that was a little bit ghetto. All right, so we're gonna do something kind of cool. At least I think it's kind of cool. So I'm actually not gonna use this gauge pod. I bought one of these like 6 months ago, and it sat in my shed. It's one of these guys, bolts in here. But the reason I don't like it is I really don't like screwing into, I don't like making holes in my original plastics. I don't know, maybe you guys are like me, maybe you don't care, but this is a mint interior and I really don't like just making holes. Plus this is black and not blue, so anyway, I'll probably sell this. If you want one of these gauge pods, I bought it from LC Engineering. It was like 90 bucks. What I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna make a sweet little bracket So these guys can kind of all go in a line. Let me see if I can set up this camera. It's gonna work well for me because this is just a dummy e-brake, folks. The Yeti doesn't have an e-brake, poor guy. So this handle's usually like this, but mine's just gonna be like that. So I can have these in a nice stack. So we got everyone's favorite fab tool here, the old cardboard, and we're gonna start doing some cutting and bending and see what we can come up with.
After I had the cardboard cut out, I went over to the CAD machine because that made things a lot easier, especially when your buddy owns a sweet fab shop.
Okay, so another thing we have to do is replace the O2 sensor. Mine recently stopped working, it was throwing an engine code, and it's a 5 flasher on the early 22 RE, which is either ECU or O2 sensor, and I swapped my ECU out and it's not the ECU. This O2 sensor is not that old, but I've had bad O2 sensors right out of the box. And right now, unfortunately, it is freaking impossible to find the actual factory Denso O2 sensor. I haven't been able to find it anywhere. Everywhere it's out of stock. So I got this NTK one, and you know, fingers crossed it works, otherwise waste 50 bucks, but they don't return these after you open them, so here's hoping. So this is our little O2 bracket, and the threads are a little bit munched, and you gotta thread this in there, and then this bolts onto the header. But since our threads are a little munched, I'm gonna throw a little bit of red RTV high temp on there, just to make sure we don't get any leaks. Yep. Yep, got our new O2 sensor and gasket. Got it installing down there, and hopefully it works. All right, here's our little bracket. Just cat it up quickly. All right, so here is the finished design. The one you actually just saw me making didn't end up working, the one that I bent, because this design, it actually uses the factory holes. So there's a factory hole back there, there's one right here, and then there's one up in the top corner at the very back. But what happened is I could install the bracket, but then I couldn't actually get the gauges in, or I could install the gauges on the bracket, but then I couldn't get the bracket in. So I had to make it again, but I made it 2 pieces. So you can see here we've got little screws here. So the actual little piece that holds the gauges is separate from the plate that goes against the side, which I cut to fit. And overall, yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. It's a quick glance down to see the gauges, And yeah, obviously the e-brake is non-operational, but you guys knew that already. I'm not sure if it'll be the final place for the gauges. The only thing is it's a little bit close to my leg. You know, if I'm, it just like slightly touches, but that's like only if I'm like sitting, you know, if I'm man spreading, if I'm just sitting really wide. And I don't think it'll bother me too much, but I don't know. I may get tired of it and make something else in the future. We'll see. It'll be great for this trip. A lot better than the Zap straps that were there before. The last few things we have to do is an oil change and just a general bolt check and fluid check, which will pretty much conclude the trip prep. Oh, and this thing. So our good friend Jason, who owns West Can Overland, had this rooftop tent just chilling that he's not using, and we were in between putting the wilderness back on, but honestly it's super heavy for the Yeti and this is a long trip, and the other option was the aluminum canopy, but then you've got to pull all your stuff out when you want to go to bed, and in grizzly bear country you don't really want to leave your cooler outside of your truck. So he offered this and we're gonna test it out. These rails are actually from a 3rd gen Tacoma, but I made them work. They're a little bit wide, and I had to make this little lift piece, but same bed width, and yeah, hard shell rooftop tent. Should be pretty sweet. Got the little ladder, and it's just enough room to get my cooler under the rails, and then we got the drawers in the back here, which you've seen before. So hoping this will be a pretty mint setup. First time in a rooftop tent, and pretty excited that the bedding all stays in there. At the end of this, we'll probably do a full review of this tent and this setup. Just I feel like you guys might be interested in that. But I'm gonna do the last little bit of trip prep, little bolt check, and then we're hitting the road. We got 7 days on the road. It's gonna be wild, going to country we've never seen before, and I'm excited. We're both really excited, so stay tuned for those videos. They'll be coming out soon, and thanks so much for watching. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you in the next one.